European Union leaders hold an emergency meeting, seeking to reconcile differences on dealing with the deepening migrant crisis. An explosion rocks Zimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa's campaign rally in Bulawayo. And weather insurance boosts the resilience of Malawian farmers. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. As the European migrant crisis deepens, European Union leaders met Sunday in Belgium to discuss how to best cope with huge waves of migrants landing on the continent's shores. A key issue is the so-called Dublin regulation, which says that asylum seekers must be assessed in the EU nation where they first arrive. That rule puts a heavy burden on Greece, Italy and Malta, where most of the migrants land after crossing the Mediterranean Sea. VOA's Zlatis Ahok reports.
The emergency meeting in Brussels Sunday took place after more than 1,500 migrants arrived on the Spanish shore after being picked up from smugglers' vessels or saved from drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. Spain came to the rescue last week after Italy and Malta refused docking to some of the ships carrying migrants. But like other Mediterranean countries, Spain says it cannot carry the burden alone.
We are willing to reach this common response to a global challenge, which is the migration flows that are coming, especially now from Western Mediterranean, and we will ask also for the support of our comrades, our state members.
Eastern European countries, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia, firmly refuse to share the burden, which makes an EU-wide agreement on how to process migrants harder to reach. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the 16 leaders meeting Sunday are looking for ways in which 2 or 3 EU nations can cooperate without waiting for a solution acceptable to all 28 members.
We discussed this here in view of the upcoming European Council meeting on Thursday and Friday, but we know that at the European Council, unfortunately, we will not have a complete solution of the migration issue. That is why there will be bilateral and trilateral agreements on how we can help each other, not always wait for all 28 members, but think about what is important to whom.
The discussion is expected to continue well into the second half of the year, when Austria will preside over the 28-nation bloc.
At the latest, during the meeting of leaders on 20th September in Salzburg, we should make significant progress. In this context, a strengthening of personnel at Europe's borders and also a broadening of the mission is important, including the ability to actively fight traffickers and work with third-party countries.
The urgency of the meeting was highlighted as another rescue ship carrying 239 African migrants remained floating Sunday in the Mediterranean Sea after Malta and Italy refused to allow it to dock. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa says Saturday's deadly blast at a campaign rally will not delay next month's historic election. Zimbabwe's state-run media says the explosion in Bulawayo killed 2 people. Vice President Constantino Chiwenga was slightly bruised in the blast. He calls the attack terrorism and said any frightened candidate would be provided with protection. President Mnangagwa says the blast happened just inches from him, but he was unscathed. State media are calling the blast an assassination attempt. Police say they are investigating and are offering a substantial reward for information about the attack. For more on the Zimbabwe explosion, journalist Kutsanai Musengi joins me by phone from Bulawayo. Good evening, Kutsanai.
Good evening, Victor.
Now, what is the latest actually on who could have done this or who is suspected to have launched this attack?
Earlier on, I spoke to the police spokesperson, Senior Assistant Commissioner Charity Charamba. She says police are still investigating this issue. There's been a lot of speculation. Some people are speculating that this could be some people within the party itself. There has been infighting in ZANU-PF, even before, even after the coup that removed former President Robert Mugabe from power. People do speculate that despite the posturing, there are not easy relations. There is not an easy relationship between President Emmerson Mnangagwa and one of his co-vice presidents, retired General Constantino Chiwenga.
Okay, now, in terms of this kind of incidents, do you remember ever witnessing such a thing any time in the past few years?
This came as a shock to many people because there hasn't been any incident like that in the past few years. During the Mugabe era, of course, we would hear of assassination attempts on him. The president, Emmerson Mnangagwa himself, has in the past reported to have had, suffered some attempts on his life, but not in the form of a bomb, really, or a grenade, as happened this weekend. Really, when there are such state occasions, the security is heavy, very heavy. There are sniffer dogs. They do serious searching. Even for us journalists, when you get to such an event, there's serious searching, thorough searching. So hence the speculation that this could have been an inside job, so to speak.
Now, in terms of the preparations for the upcoming elections, where are things at the moment, and what is the state of things in the country in terms of the relationships between, the ruling party and the opposition members?
Well, so far, aside from the incident on Saturday, the various parties have been campaigning. It has generally been peaceful, although in the rural areas there's presence. There are reported presence of there's a reported presence of the military, but generally there has been it has been peaceful. The military's presence in the rural areas is obviously said by some to intimidate the people, but otherwise it has been generally peaceful. One of the front runners, Nelson Chamisa, has also been having rallies across the country, going to the rural areas which were hitherto considered to be a no-go area for the opposition. And also now, at the moment, people are focusing on the voters' roll. The body that is in charge of the elections, that is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, has just released that. Okay. Yes.
All right. Thank you. We'll keep an eye there. Just hope there's no more explosions. Kutanai, thank you very much. Kutanai Musenge reporting from Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. Now, to the west of the continent, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is calling for calm after clashes between farmers and semi-nomadic herders have killed at least 86 people at the weekend. Authorities have imposed a dusk-to-dawn curfew in Central Plateau State, which has seen an escalation of clashes in recent years over dwindling fertile land. In a statement via Twitter, President Buhari says no effort will be spared to bring the perpetrators to justice and prevent a recurrence. Buhari is rejecting criticism that his administration is soft-peddling justice for the herders who belong to the same Fulani ethnic group as he does. Not too far from there, meanwhile, at least 16 Fulani herders are believed to have died in suspected ethnic clashes in central Mali on Sunday. Details of the attack are sketchy, but an organization representing Fulani herders says close to 50 people were killed in the Moti region by the Donso hunters. The two groups have long fought over land, grazing and water rights. The violence underscores the chronic instability blighting the West African nation ahead of elections next month. Now, the area north of Bamako has become lawless, and it's being used as a launchpad for jihadist attacks across West Africa. Ethiopian state-affiliated media, Fana Broadcasting Corporation, is reporting that the United States will send agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation to investigate the deadly attack in Addis Ababa on Saturday. U.S. Under Secretary of Commerce Gilbert Kaplan reportedly made the remark Monday after meeting with Ethiopia's foreign minister in Addis Ababa. 2 people were killed and over 150 wounded in the grenade attack that happened just after new reformist Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had just finished a speech before tens of thousands of supporters. 30 people have been arrested in connection with the attack, which the 41-year-old Abiy described as well orchestrated. For more insight on the latest developments in the Horn of Africa, Joseph Siegel, Director of Research Africa Center for Strategic Studies at National Defense University in Washington, DC joins me via Skype. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you, Vincent.
Yes, and now we've been observing things happening rather fast in Ethiopia. First, what do you make of this explosion over the weekend?
Well, it's obviously very concerning. There's very sketchy details about what's happening, but it's a reminder that there are elements within Ethiopia or outside of Ethiopia that are opposed to the reforms that Abiy Ahmed is making.
Do you get the sense that it's moving really fast, given that he's not necessarily an individual, there is a juggernaut, a system in Ethiopia that has been running things?
Well, it's going very fast given the historical standards, but I think it reflects a moment, a transition inflection point in Ethiopia, where there has been a buildup and a desire for change that's been coming for a long time. And I think Prime Minister Abiy is responding to that. You know, he has a great deal of legitimacy, having been selected as a minority party within the EPRDF and having this groundswell of popular support. That's not like anything we've seen in Ethiopia since really the early days with Meles Zenawi in the 1990s following the liberation from the Derg. And so I think he is just tapping this groundswell of support for reform, for a degree for greater popular participation, for a greater involvement in the economy and civil society, loosening some of the press restrictions and civil society restrictions that have been on the society. And so I think that's why we saw so many people out on the streets on Saturday to try to voice their support for what he's doing.
Yes, and the overtures across the border, do you see this actually translating possibly to a more peaceful, cozy relationship between the two nations, one large, one small?
Yeah, I think it's creating a real opportunity to change that dynamic with Eritrea. The conflict that happened between 1998 and 2000 with Eritrea was really a lot about pride and posturing between the two leaders at the time, Isaias Afwerki in Eritrea and Meles Zenawi in Ethiopia. And they had both staked a lot of capital and their own reputations and even the national identity on making sure that they defend every inch of their respective territories. And this quickly escalated into the border conflict around the Badme and other regions. It tragically resulted in the deaths of 80 to 100,000 people. And it's really for a territory that has little economic value. It's not very densely populated. It was all about pride. And so this long-standing difference has been hard to resolve without one side being seen as backing down or another. In comes Prime Minister Abiy, and he doesn't have any of that baggage. He sees that this is a conflict that can be resolved. There's been a decision made by this transboundary commission between Eritrea and Ethiopia, sanctioned by the United Nations. And I think he's saying, let's just move on with this. There's so many more reasons and incentives for us to cooperate economically, security-wise, politically. And I think he's trying to forge through with this opportunity now.
Well, we'll keep watching and see how far he gets with all this. Wish him well. Thank you very much, Dr. Siegel.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You're welcome. Joseph Siegel is the Director of Research at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies at National Defense University. here in Washington. Now, Ethiopia says a delegation from neighboring Eritrea is set to arrive in Addis Ababa this week for talks that could bring an end to one of the longest-running conflicts in Africa. Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki pledged to send the delegation last week during his country's Martyrs' Day observance in Asmara. President Afwerki's pledge was in response to one made earlier this month by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that he will honor a deal signed in 2000 to end a 2-year border war. Ethiopia has long refused to accept the terms of the deal. Eritrea, a former province of Ethiopia, broke away in 1993. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still to come on Africa 54, helping rural farmers in Malawi manage hunger resulting from drought. But first, here's a look at Monday's headlines.
One of them required
Protests continue over the treatment of migrants detained for entering the United States illegally, although the Trump administration has reversed its controversial policy of separating detained children and parents at the border. Still, thousands of migrants are in detention awaiting their court cases, and many remain separated from their children. Mike O'Sullivan reports from the California-Mexico border that Americans are hearing two conflicting narratives.
At an Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention center in California, protesters demanded the release of families at facilities like this in Texas.
They've got a big mess right now of families that are separated, that can't even talk to each other, can connect with each other, make sure that everybody in the family is still okay. Not even sure yet how they're going to get these people all reunited.
At the White House Friday, President Donald Trump highlighted other families whose loved ones had been killed by illegal immigrants.
These are the families the media ignores. They don't talk about them.
These protesters say Trump's comments follow a pattern of blaming migrants for the nation's problems.
Whether these are Chinese immigrants, whether these are Mexicano immigrants and now Central American immigrants. So there has always been an excuse to blame others.
Among those raising their voices, a Democratic senator and frequent Trump critic.
This is a fight born out of knowing who we are and fighting for the ideals of our country.
The president has demanded better border security and a merit-based system of immigration. Protesters say he wants to bar immigrants from the developing world who already face a hard path to entry and a huge backlog of cases.
We have a broken immigration system. This is not news to anybody. This is what we've been talking about for a long time.
One protester says that in this year of congressional elections, we'll see more posturing.
We do need sane members of Congress to sit down and talk about what a reasonable immigration policy looks like. Listen to the experts who have been on the ground. We're right here at the border.
No one expects an easy solution. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Otay Mesa, California.
Well, a report published Friday by Europe's top human rights body finds that xenophobia and hate speech are on the rise across the region. Despite progress in some areas, the Strasbourg, France-based Council of Europe finds minorities, including Muslims, Jews, homosexuals, and Roma, face stigma, intolerance, and sometimes exclusion across its 48 member states. A citizens' initiative aims to bridge these divisions through dialogue. Lisa Bryant reports from northern France.
Ever wondered what it's like to be homeless or gay or even a Catholic priest from the Democratic Republic of Congo? Veronique Cook is finding out. She's listening to Father Mcngundu from Central DRC describe how conflict and poverty have ravaged his homeland.
In my district, there is water service, but people are too poor to pay for it.
Their lives may never have crossed had it not been for an experiment called Living Libraries, launched here in Caen this month at a peace forum.
It's a pioneering effort and a great experience. I want to talk about the war in my country and how I lived through the different conflicts.
Living Libraries were founded nearly 2 decades ago in Denmark. Instead of learning from books, the idea is to learn from our fellow humans as a way to confront our own prejudice and stereotypes.
I think that living libraries have been invented to actually allow you to get to speak to a black person or an Arab person or a Jewish person and get to discover what it's like for that person. An opportunity to break barriers.
Waxman is a former French diplomat. She changed careers because she wanted to make more of a hands-on difference.
People are more likely to be in conflict if they don't have a chance to talk to the other people or to have prejudice about others. So a living library is a framework that allows people to talk to each other, ask questions in a secure way.
Living libraries have been held in about 60 countries, including in Europe, the United States, and India. They work like real libraries. You can check out a subject you're interested in and borrow that person for a conversation. The subjects here today include homeless people and clerics like Ngundu, who now lives in France.
It will be good if this event takes place all over the world. And then we can try to stop war everywhere.
The Living Libraries motto is simple: don't judge a book by its cover. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Caen, France.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. A group of Nigerian street children have been transformed into celebrities thanks to a viral dance video that has attracted the attention of singer Rihanna and supermodel Naomi Campbell. The dream catchers were seen in a video earlier this year, dancing like double-jointed puppets in front of a buttered red bus on waste ground. The internet lit up when Rihanna and P. Diddy shared the clip on their own accounts, and it was seen more than 2.8 million times. Now they're dancing in the video of Nigerian singer Amada's homage to the country's Super Eagles, who are playing in the World Cup in Russia. Staying in Nigeria, Taiwo Mogbojubola is making a fresh batch of zobo, a refreshing herbal drink popular in Nigeria made from rosil, a species of hibiscus and often flavored with fruits as well as spices. Taiwo says demand for healthy drinks among an emerging middle class in the country has pushed entrepreneurs like her to invest in brewing herbal beverages. She has been processing and bottling the drink, which is branded as exotic zobo, in Lagos for the last 2 years, where she runs a small factory from her house. After a drastic drop in global oil prices, Africa's largest exporter of crude oil has been working to diversify the economy and develop local sectors and entrepreneurs like Taiwo. And finally, fast fashion has not only made a huge impact on how we dress, but also on how quickly we are willing to discard our clothes. However, does our obsession with trends come with a high environmental price tag? British lawmakers who are members of the Environmental Audit Committee want to assess the social and environmental impact of the fashion industry. The carbon footprint and water use of manufacturing and maintaining clothes during its life cycle will be scrutinized by the inquiry. Ideas for recycling clothes, reducing waste and pollution will also be considered, and that's what's trending today. In Malawi, the World Food Programme is working on an innovative initiative that helps rural farmers manage hunger resulting from drought. Under the R4 Rural Resilience Initiative, farmers ensure their crops against the drought and receive compensation as a result. Lamek Masina reports from Blantyre.
This maize garden usually gives Friday Chakuda 20 bags of maize at harvest each year. But this year, he only harvested 3 bags.
The rain stopped towards the end of December, soon after we planted our crops. It came again end January, but this time most of our crops had already withered.
Although many crops failed in his area, Chakuda is not facing resulting food shortages. He is among the farmers who received about $55 each as a compensation for their losses through the UN World Food Programme initiative known as weather insurance.
I have used the money I received to buy maize. Another part of the money I've bought onion, which I've planted in my garden, and have invested the rest to a village loan club where I will borrow from in the future.
The WFP started the initiative 4 years ago to mitigate the impact of hunger on farmers affected by the dry spells.
The weather insurance specifically offers protection on drought damage or crops that have been much affected by drought. And so far we have reached 10,000 households across 3 districts of Blantyre, Zomba and Balaka. And we're hoping to add a further 7,000 this agricultural season.
The initiative requires farmers to work in groups to create community assets like deep trenches that check soil erosion and runoffs.
They work for 14 days in every 2 months, and WFP translates that labor input from them as a cash payment to the insurance company. So recently it was 13,000 Malawian kwacha that WFP paid on behalf of the farms that are participating to the insurance company.
Some have used the compensation to create home gardens, while others are growing vegetables for commercial purposes. The WFP plans to extend the insurance initiative to crops affected by the 4 armyworms. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Blantyre.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Today's episode won't cost you anything.
Freebie.
Let's see what this one is about.
Anna, I love my job.
Oh yeah? Why is that?
I get so many freebies from the bands I write about. CDs, t-shirts, water bottles, even tickets to see them perform.
Wow. The only freebie I ever got from my